I'm sorry. You can't come in. We're closed, you understand? This C is not for Cleveland. How did I get in? That's none of your business.
Hey, come here. There's a bunch of comedians hanging out with some friends. You're not supposed to be here, but if you're cool, you can come and hang. If you've ever been offended by anything, don't come in.
Nobody remembers my act, that's the problem.
So you stopped doing stand-up altogether for quite a while?
I want to start doing it again to make some money.
Yeah.
We were worried about you, Drew.
Got bills to pay.
We would think I was thinking
Well, Larry the
of
Cable Guy made like $21 million the other year.
Oh, that's now the barometer, 21 million?
No, the barometer is Larry the Cable Guy making $21 million.
Well, Larry the Cable Guy popped, right? I have to quote Mark Maron. You know Mark Maron, yeah? Very funny guy. He said something hilarious. He said, you know when you're eating popcorn and you get those little kernels on the bottom that haven't popped yet? He goes, those are the ones with integrity. He's funny. We should get him. Well, your actor Reg is just now spending time in America's show business. It must be a trip for you. Because tell your story. American, you went over to the UK, started doing stand-up over there. Yep. And it's, you notice a difference, right, between the UK and here?
Well, I've only played a couple of gigs here and a few gigs in New York. And yeah, it is different. I remember I went to do some gigs in Harlem. And as I was getting out of the taxi, there was these two guys. They in front of the club. And I said, yo, is this the comedy club? And he said, yeah, you better be fucking funny.
That's good advice.
I was closing a gig in Atlanta, and the comic that was on in the middle spot came to me and asked my permission to sell CDs. And it was like, what? I ain't your fucking mama. Do what you want to do.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. You let him sell CDs?
How does a dude start out in England? Like, if you were brand new and you said, I want to be a
Drew, we know people. We can get you in.
You'd be straight through.
They had a program in England for a while. They had a program that I was on at the Queen's Theatre. They brought American comics over.
Right, Dennis Leary hosted it.
It was fantastic, but I remember one of the comics, I won't say who it was.
Better fucking say who it was.
We'll guess who it was. We'll be able to guess who it was. It was Paul, but... No, but the thing is, this guy every night was closing, and it was a 10-minute thing on Wheel of Fortune. But they don't get Wheel of Fortune in England. And he'd come off, and I'd say to him, you know what, they don't get Wheel of Fortune. He said, no, it's just a tough house. And I just, oh my God.
You see, I use universal references. I say Kit Kats because they're everywhere, Mars bars because they're all around the world. I talk about bus systems.
Just so
No, shut the fuck up, no. Listen, you shithead. The point is...
I wish I could afford to travel over the world before I started doing stand.
No, but the point... You listen to the fucking point. The point is, without much adjustment, you can actually miss it. If that guy had understood it, and if he'd explained his references, he could have got his points in.
I worked with a guy once, and he used to ask everybody, who golfs?
Yeah.
And, and he would wait for a fucking answer from the audience. And I was sitting there going, who gives a fuck who golfs? Tell your fucking golf joke, goddammit. Seriously.
I know a comic in England, when the jokes aren't going well, and he wants to get the audience roaring back on their side, he goes, who here likes sex? And of course, they're gonna go, ugh. And it's cheap.
I've done shows where I could ask that, and they would go, fuck you. Who likes sex? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, the only way to do it is, on the golf thing, is who here plays golf? Yeah, okay. Well, tennis is interesting, and then go for the tennis. Just spin all the stuff.
Guys do it to kill time. They got to do 10 minutes and ask them questions.
No, I think it's because of fear. I think they fear...
That's what I think it is.
I think it's fear that people will go, golf? I've never heard of golf.
I think that it's not realizing that you don't actually need a segue.
Yeah.
I had the amazing fortune when I was real young, just a baby comic, teeny tiny baby comic. I was a fetal comic. I was sperm. I was just sperm. I was really, I'd been doing comedy for like 6 months.
We get it. You attack me first. I'm gonna And now the point.
By the way,
Bill Cosby.
This whole bench is very tough. This whole side is very tough. We have a good bench, a kind bench.
Yes.
So Bill Cosby, I had the chance to meet Bill Cosby, and he spent like a lot of time with me. And I would ask those stupid starting questions, like, you know, how do you do segues, whatever. And he said, you know what, you don't have to always be funny on stage. He said, you just have to be interesting.
In 5-minute shots, though, in stand-up shots, Tonight Show shots, Letterman shots, it is all about the segues.
Yeah, I can't do those.
That's what's new to me. When I did New York for the first time, and they tell you, you got 5 minutes, 6 if you're cooking. I'm used to doing 45 minutes to an hour. But it's great because you're trying to edit yourself, and while you're on stage, you can be like, okay, the next line in my head, it's a nice lateral move, but it's not necessary. And then you...
You said something really interesting about jazz and stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Starting in America.
Yes. Everybody knows that jazz is a uniquely American art form. Yeah. That's also true for stand-up comedy. Stand-up is purely uniquely American, but the rest of the world has taken this form, expanded it in so many different directions.
I would only change one thing in that. I think...
Stole it from the Indians.
No, yeah.
That's probably true.
Well, you know,
All right, I said it. I don't care.
the first stand-up comedians were actually cavemen standing around a fire going, there were these two guys, right? One was a bear. One was a bear and the other one wasn't. But I think stand-up has been around in different countries. But alternative stand-up, I think Lenny Bruce, The Godfather, I don't know what you guys think, but for us, we feel that Lenny Bruce started it. But we couldn't get into Lenny Bruce. It was very difficult. The hipster language that he used, and it was very Americana-centric.
Early British stand-up was filled with sort of music hall semiotics.
My impression that with the English music hall comedy, and that tradition is more like, that's why she says he's my wife. And you know, it's a lot of dancing like this. And it's not...
They do it. I tell you,
He's good!
There was a really weird thing they used to do in mainstream comedy, which is they used to go, my old man said, follow the van. Vans are interesting, aren't they? When you drive a van, and they do this. And they, what the? Who told them to do that? It was just weird. But 1979, at the end of punk, then alternative comedy came out in the Comedy Store, which is not linked to the Comedy Store here in LA, and everything's come out of that since then. And it took over the mainstream.
American stand-up was the first time, I think, that people actually used to start getting on a stage and say, you know, I'll tell you what I think. You know, the concept of I tell you what I think. You know, try that in Spain in the 30s. You know what I feel? So, I mean, there was no...
Italy in the 20s.
I love comics that have an opinion, like comics without an opinion bug me. I don't care if he's angry at what, you know, or if I don't agree with his opinion, or her opinion, but if they have an opinion, a really strong one, then I'm hooked.
I mean, the best stand-ups, I believe, tend to ruin a generation of comics. Like Bill Hicks ruined a generation of comics in Britain who tried to... Richard Pryor ruined 3 or 4 generations of black comics.
Because everyone tries to be like them.
Trying to... competent fakes.
So many of those people take the wrong lesson away, and they just, you know, get the externals and miss the heart.
Jazz and comedy have something else in common to me, but I think jazz and comedy live best in clubs still. In clubs with low ceilings where you get up close and it really rings like a bell.
Speaking of which...
I'm trying to do big intimacy.
Big intimacy.
Sounds like the name of a show.
I'm playing Madison Square Garden, so I do believe that it changes, yeah. Intimacy is great, and if it gets bigger, it becomes an event. I just don't want to leave it to rock and roll guys. Just they have all the fun. They can play arenas and stadiums, whatever the hell they want.
Are you using like video and all that stuff?
Yeah, I have 3 screens. I have a full-length screen and 2 side screens. So trick is don't try and push the energy out and run all over that huge stage. Just stand there and just bring it in. So I'm just experimenting with lots of screens to try and work out what to do.
You're in that screen phase.
Well, you've got to, you know. It could ruin it for a generation. Like, everyone's going to screens everywhere.
Well, do you remember when Steve Martin started playing big, huge halls, Madison Garden size things?
Well, he had a lot of street kind of stuff in it. You know, the stuff when you're juggling cats, and I used to do street, and it's really difficult to write. When you think of great visual things, it's really difficult to come up with another one. Talking's so much bloody easier.
Did you work with a lot of props?
Yeah, a ton of props. When I was a solo act, I used to escape from manacles on a 5-foot unicycle. And when I was a double act, I used to make a bowl of cornflakes disappear. I would do the magician's assistant. My partner said, there's the bowl, cornflakes in, cornflakes milk goes into it. How can it disappear? With a cloth of death. And I just put the thing over my head, and then he'd wave around this magic wand. I'd just be eating them with my face. And then he'd give me the magic wand, which had an enormous wooden spoon on the end of it, which I just continued to eat. And so it was rubbish stuff like that. And it was a knife-throwing thing, and there was a beaver that went through a hoop of newspaper. So there was a massive props. And then I was at the Comedy Store in London, and I just noticed the respect that was going to the stand-ups who were saying, you know, God, does God exist? And cheese, what can we do with it? And they can just talk about anything. And then they go, well, I'm gonna have some drinks. And I'd be dragging all my stuff off the stage and trying to mop up. And I felt such an idiot. I thought, I'm stopping this and starting that one.
You know, I would pay good money to see you and that other guy do your old act. I bet you could make some coin. You would call it Eddie Izzard's old act. You could call it my old act and just explain this is the one I started out with.
And at least
No,
now...
I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, but at least now you'd have people carrying the stuff for you. I saw Bob Dubeck sitting right there, open for Linda Ronstadt once, when she was going through that whole era when she was doing elegant songs with Nelson Riddle arrangements and gowns. It's all love songs. And she came down on a half moon in a gown like this, and the orchestra is all in dinner jackets, and Nelson Riddle raises his arms like that, and a guy, no kidding, in the middle of the audience shouts, "Rock and roll, Linda!" And there was one of the great moments in show business where she, Nelson Riddle, and everyone in the orchestra just did a very brief...
And you opened for Diana Ross?
Yes.
For 3 years?
Yeah, I toured with her off and on for like three and a half years.
Now, how does that work? Because I feel that music and comedy don't mix well, because music is a field gig and comedy is a mind gig. But
Yeah.
then...
Yeah, it didn't go well.
A comedian comes on...
No, here's the thing, is she gave no billing. Nobody knew there was an opening act. And I would go and I would say, look, we've been doing this now for a year and a half. Can I maybe get billing? So she'd just go, no, but here's another $5,000, you know. So I had no billing. So that was the real challenge, because I was basically on while people were still coming in and sitting down.
Wow.
And then one day, yes, wow. It was fucking insane. And then one day, this thing, you know how sometimes something will just come to you full blown, lights would go down, the music would start up, and you hear that drum roll, you know, and you'd hear, it ain't no mountain high enough for, you know, 15 bars. And then the announcer would come in and go, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Diana Ross Show. And the crowd goes, yeah! And then they go, please welcome your special guest, Paul Provenza. And you could hear thousands of people go, oh, God. A fucking nightmare, right?
That hurts.
So one day I came out on stage and I just said, okay, I know, you get all dressed up, you come out here, the lights come down, the music comes up, you're all excited, I show up, you're pissed off, I get it. You didn't know I was gonna be here, but you know when you go to the deli and you buy a sandwich and they give you that pickle with the sandwich? They don't tell you you're gonna get the pickle. They just give it to you. I'm the pickle. And that changed everything. That changed everything. And if I hadn't come upon that, it probably would have been about a week and a half gig.
I opened for Casey and the Sunshine Band. One show, but it seemed like 3.5 years. Because it was at the Coca-Cola Stadium, it was like 16,000 people, and you come out, and 4 or 5 minutes in, they came out to do the sound test right behind me. So you're performing, and a guy behind the bass drum will go, tuh, 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 and then into the mic, test! Test! And really no brotherhood of performing?
Wow.
No, there's something I got to say on top of this. If you do your bit of stand-up, and then someone comes on with headphones on and goes, go longer, another 5. And it's as if we're just sort of cows, you can milk us. And we go, so anyway, chickens, what, you know. And this is because some band is backstage having a hissy fit about some bloody thing, or there's something not working, or the mic's fallen off. And they never say to the bands when they finish, do another one, do another, play another one. The stand-up's back thing, and he's having a snooze. And we are used as cannon fodder.
The most humbling realization I ever had as a comedian, this is just put it all in perspective for me. I was working a cruise ship.
Or working it.
Man's gotta eat. And you can eat 24/7 on a cruise ship. But
This is after Diana Ross, yeah? This is the next gig?
it was good money. Shut up, Mr. I'm playing Madison Square Garden.
Well,
No, I did everything. Any gig that came my way, I did it. I
That's
wanted
the
to
point.
experience
Don't do that.
Every gig.
I guess that $5,000 ran out, eh?
Yes.
By the way,
Yes. So you're doing the cruise ships, and they do midnight comedy shows. They would bring people like us in to do midnight shows because those are generally younger audiences in their 70s. And I get friendly with the cruise director, who's sort of like the MC of the ship. He explains to me one night, and he said, well, the reason that you're hired to perform at midnight is so not everybody on the ship goes to the buffet at the same time.
really?
That's it. Similar thing.
And I realized I am a traffic cone. That's it.
I did my one and only cruise I did about 6 months ago, Sweden to Finland, and it was just an all-night cruise.
How was it?
And it was weird because young men and single women, they go on these cruises and they get drunk and they have sex because they can't do it on the mainland in this way. And I asked the guy, I said, why do y'all do this? And he said, it's just an understanding for women. If you get fucked underwater, it doesn't count. And so,
Is this international marine law?
If that's not a book title, I don't know what is. We all have a cruise. I have one. I was single at the time. It was a Norway thing, and one of the women in the Norwegian sailor thing, the white and crisp and swimmer's shoulders, and the classic. It was like the granddaughter of a Viking. I was so taken with her. I thought, this is someone maybe after the show, and I walked by her. The body odor was so astonishing. I was never so stunned. Everyone is right when they say that Americans shower too much, but every so often you want to say, ever been in an elevator in Oslo? Because this was nuts. It was so nuts, and she actually came up to me and she said, well, would you like to get a beer or something? And I said, for the first time, you know what? No. I have such an early class tomorrow.
I have to take a shower. Get me? I'm taking a shower right now. Maybe you could join me in the fucking shower.
But on sea.
We can take a shower together, then have a beer.
What's the cigarette bit?
Oh, smoke in her face to get the odor.
Was she wearing a uniform?
Yeah.
Because you can't clean uniforms. That's the thing. They move around and you sweat. Well, you can't. You could dry clean them, but you can't wash them in a bloody tub. They just fall apart. They're uniforms.
I know they don't stop bullets, but I thought you could at least wash them, No? It's so funny as comics, by the way, we pick something visual.
No,
this is so cool. We're using washboards from 1,000 years ago,
I think it could be a uniform thing. I think you need to go around with some friends who've got great noses and around uniform people.
You know what's wonderful is that we're just meeting for the first time, and I don't know, is he yanking me about the uniform thing?
No.
It could be that you actually can't.
No, there's an Australian triple act called the Doug Anthony All-Stars who were fantastic. They were mad if anyone ever saw them. They wore uniforms with braid. It was like the Sgt. Pepper's gone bonkers in a punk Sgt. Pepper's. And if you ever got close to them, those uniforms stunk like things had died and killed themselves and had rabies. And,
Well, wait a
and
minute.
it was the most god-awful thing. And they couldn't clean them.
Well,
they
hold
just
on a
couldn't
second,
clean
though.
them.
I was in the marching band in high school. No, really.
I was too. Something, yeah. Tatica.
I'm telling you, we have a. By the way, and that's why I'm telling you, we have a great bench here. But I was in marching band. Now these were uniforms that had that thick road to perdition material, where it's just really, really thick, and you wear them. You march on Memorial Day, July 4th. They smelled mothbally. Yeah. But they were goofy hats and very thick material and long stripes down the pants. But everyone wore them. They didn't smell. Again.
Back in my day, we didn't stink when we wore our uniforms. Back in my day, if you wore a uniform, you learned how to wipe your ass once in a while.
There's an apocryphal story of a comic who did so badly.
Was this Jack Craven?
Yeah, I've heard 10 different names. I don't know who
I was just going to bring it up. Go ahead, tell us.
The story, as I heard it, was that it was only a couple of weeks after the Achille Lauro incident.
That's right.
And Leon Klinghoffer.
Too soon.
Wheelchair bound.
all trying to have fun here, all right?
Where they shot Leon Klinghoffer in the wheelchair and pushed him overboard, right? Get on the ship and, you know, they give the rundown. The people run, think, okay, here are the things. Can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that. Right off the bat, first thing was, do not mention the recent incidents at sea. 5 minutes into his act, there's a guy in the front row in the wheelchair, and he goes, come on, laugh. It's not like we're going to shoot you in the head and throw you overboard. And about 3-4 hours later, he's in bed asleep, and there's a knock on the door, and he opens the door, and there's all these people in uniforms, probably smelling quite well. Go, pack your stuff up, you're leaving the ship. And they airlifted him off a ship in the middle of the Caribbean.
Wow.
But they said to him, they said, no, you have to leave because we can't guarantee your safety.
It's not like I'm an old guy in a wheelchair. What are they going to do to me? Can't hit me. I can run. In comedy, again, it's the same thing as he just did. It's like the washboard again. This works, too. It just feels like something...
I've used this a lot. It's good for detective stuff. And what do you mean?
Yeah, I do it when
If you do that one, you do that one.
guy who's complaining.
I don't know.
It's a complaining guy.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Let me tell you about what I do.
Well, I've never done a cruise ship. No, but I've done some really crack gigs. Have you ever dismissed an audience? That is a great feeling.
Dismiss? What you mean?
Wait, you could do that?
Yeah, I did twice. Twice I dismissed.
Will they still pay you for that?
No, it was street performing, so it's slightly different gig. They're going to pay at the end.
Okay.
But it's interesting. I was out there, I was in a double act, I was out there, and we were given every bit of energy and excitement on a day that was grey and overcast in London. So we're really working our asses off here. We're putting a lot in. You're giving us nothing back. Just go. And then, but interestingly, that dynamic they were not expecting, and then they would not go. They found that too interesting. And they didn't massively change their demeanor, but they didn't go. They just stayed, and I walked off.
By the way, I've got one for you. Iowa State Police Association convention. 1,000 officers and their wives in a domed ballroom in the Davenport Hilton. I'm in the back in my little sport jacket next to a trooper in uniform who's going to walk me through the room up front.
How do you smell?
After...
It goes through everyone's mind.
You know what? I'm next to this guy. He's one of those Norman Rockwell troopers, too, with the giant shoulders like Rulon Gardner, and the chest is 3 feet from front to back. One of those. And he's got the stripe thing across, and he's going to walk me up front. They have 2 hours of speeches, which is typical, as we all know, at conventions and awards and this and that. And then the chief says, and now, before we bring on our entertainer, as you know, last week, young Danny McFan was shot and killed in the line of duty. And I turned to this guy and said, what'd he say? And this guy leans down and says, we're going to have a little memorial service now. And I said, oh my God, you know, I'm a comic. And he said, shh. Now, they bring up the guy's partner who breaks down, can't finish the speech. He breaks down and walks off weeping. They bring up the widow and the family to accept a foundation check. And she faints, passes out. They have to revive her with salts. They cart her off on a stretcher. They unfurled a portrait of the guy the length of the arch next to an American flag. Everyone stands and sings a hymn, and then, as if it had been scripted, the guy says, and now, here to make you laugh. Now, here's the thing. Every comic knows this. It would never enter our heads to not go on. Oh, yeah. No comic would ever say, this is very bad.
I heard from a magician in Britain called Paul Daniels, who I heard that he did this. So it's only for comedians, and it's a tip to make it slightly easier for your first 10 minutes. You have to go on and say, this person has passed away, it's a terrible thing. This gig is for them. This is the one, we do that for them. Now
Dad, we're sorry about it. This is for him. 2 cunts walk into a fuck shop.
You can go straight to them.
Stop me if you heard it.
Gary, are you Twittering?
I am. The online response has been overwhelmingly positive, Paul. Also, after the show, if you want to ask the bartender, we are serving Leon Klinghofers. It is 2 shots and a splash.
Nicely done, nicely done. Thank you all for coming. How about a hand for our guests, Mr. Drew Carey, Mr. Larry Miller, Reginald D. Hunter, Eddie Izzard, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. Come on back to another green room.